Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 207. We've made it through the total lunar eclipse, hopefully in one piece. Pat yourself on the back. Your spirit is still intact. And since this is the lunar eclipse special, that's what we'll be focusing on today, dissecting how Bitcoin and the crypto market behaves during this specific eclipse, which starts our lunar cycle. But before we get into today's Red Pill, make sure to get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little earlier in the day, or a glass of wine or beer or any beverage of your choice if it's a little later out there in the Matrix. And also make sure to comment below this post here on Patreon to vote on the altcoins that you'd like me to cover in next week's Red Pill podcast. But before you leave a comment below, just make sure you used the search function here on Patreon to check that I have not covered the project in at least 3 months. So if it's been over 3 months since I reviewed that altcoin, or if I've never covered that altcoin before, which is pretty rare, as long as it at least has 1 year of chart history on TradingView, then you could go ahead and comment below with the name of the altcoin and include the ticker symbol as well next to it. And whatever submissions get the most likes, those top 4 will be selected for next week's Red Pill podcast. Now let's get into this. And to kick things off, I have something really important to share with you all, and I wanted to share it here before sharing an update in the What I'm Buying and Selling text channel in our Mastermind Community Discord, because it has to do with my crypto portfolio and a big decision that I'm making that is very specific to my situation as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And since I invest in crypto using a business or enterprise exchange, meaning my business invests in crypto and holds that crypto instead of me personally, this means that I could utilize specific strategies for my operation when it comes to buying, selling, and capital gains and capital losses, and the tax code, of course. Now, I can't go into too much detail here as this is a global community and every country has their own tax code, and for the personal side and as well with the business side, and even here in the US, you'd get taxed differently as an LLC versus an S Corp versus a C Corp. And if, for example, you had an S Corp, but you weren't utilizing a business or enterprise exchange to invest, then this would mean you're still in your crypto in the personal side of things. So if you're interested in this stuff and you have a business, please do your own research. And also, what I'm about to share with you is not financial advice, and I am not telling you to copy what I'm doing. So please do not copy me. But essentially, I'm going to purposefully take a loss on any new crypto or recent venture capital positions that I've made. The recent ones, such as Drift, IONet, Audio, Immutable X, Prime, and several others. And the reason I'm doing this is it's a strategy for my business to take a capital loss to offset my capital gains for the year. Now, on the personal side of things, which I am not doing, I'm doing this through my business, but for the people out there that are on the personal side, you could actually do this up to $3,000 in the US, meaning you can take a capital loss on up to $3,000 on your crypto holdings. And what's nice about this on the personal side of things is that this crypto capital loss can also go towards your earned income. So towards your earnings effectively. It does not work this way for business owners, at least not for my personal structure. So with the fact that you can take this 3,000 loss and it could be applied to your earned income, that would reduce your earned income further, which benefits your overall tax situation for the year. So just something to keep in mind. But on the business side, with an S Corp or a C Corp, it's very different. Again, please do your own research. And if you're not located in the USA, of course, consider that you could have a completely different tax situation compared to the US. So perhaps what I'm sharing right now is not even possible in your country, or perhaps it's even better in your country. Perhaps you have even better tax laws than the USA. And in that case, that's great for you. And everything I'm saying right now should definitely not influence you at all. But for me, it's clear that several of these venture capital plays I have might not pan out the way that I anticipated regarding the long-term vision. And while I'm up significantly on, for instance, my XRP position, it's just my way of playing the game, so the game doesn't play me. So likely in the next 24 hours or sooner, you'll see an update from me where I'll share this info again and I'll tell you what I did. And then what I'll do after purposefully selling all of these positions at a loss is I'll buy back into specific positions that I want to strengthen. So I'll be reducing my exposure to certain projects, and I'll also put most, if not all of it, right back into my crypto portfolio using a DCA strategy, of course. So I want you to understand I am not panic selling the bottom or trying to get out of the crypto market. I'm just implementing this strategy that works very well for my particular situation where I am not limited by $3,000 and I could kind of do it a little bit more efficiently for my overall crypto portfolio and my outlook for the future, and also things that I have going on in general for my business. So this is just my way of, again, kind of utilizing a strategy that's available to me. And this is how I can, quote, buy the dip in a more strategic way, which again is very specific to my situation as a business owner with a corporate structure. And again, an already established business or enterprise crypto exchanges that I have where my business is buying and holding crypto and not me personally. So I have all that set up already. And that's, again, another part of my overall strategy. So this is just a strategy I've come to the decision to take action on very, very recently, like over the past 48 hours after speaking to my lawyer, my accountant, and a tax professional. And I also advise you consider reaching out to legal counsel in your area to help with any potential tax wisdom you can tap into as well with whatever you have going on. And when it comes to more advanced strategies like this, it's stuff we'll be covering more throughout the year at Waters Above University, which, by the way, I kind of got this idea from a special guest that I had on my university, who's a lawyer, attorney, tax professional, kind of all-in-one wealth planner. And she was amazing at providing some of these gems and this wisdom, and I'm actually going to practice what I learned from that conversation. So it's just chaos organizing itself, let's just say. So again, this is like very, very new information, guys, but I'm set up this way so I could take advantage of it, and that's what I'm going to do. And for anyone who wants to learn more about this kind of stuff and these strategies, that's Waters Above University. We're going to be working with our university students to teach them how to create their own businesses. And if you're interested in joining us, I'll be reopening enrollment in early April. And right now, you can go over to watersabove.university. You could join our waitlist today, and that way you'll get notified when enrollment officially opens up again. And I'm really looking forward to having our second cohort join us soon. So to wrap up this update, just expect a written text update here on Patreon and within Discord very soon, outlining what I just told you here. I just wanted to tell you here first so it wouldn't catch any of you off guard and to be fully transparent with our community here. Now, let's get into our Red Pill podcast, starting with a little pattern we've been keeping our eyes on for months now, preparing for March. And that had to do with the specific time frame of March 10th through 15th. And to quickly recap some of these examples, we have last year in March 13th, where that was our local top in 2024. It was the initial high for the year all the way until November in Q4 of that year. Then the year prior, we have March 10th, 2023. Right there, it was a retail banking black swan where Bitcoin dumped into that exact date of March 10th. And then we had this V-shaped recovery. And then we have March 13th in 2022, the prior year. And when we look at what was going on back then, we can see that March 13th, 2022 was the lowest daily close we had for the rest of March. And by late March, Bitcoin actually recovered to its yearly high at the beginning of the year. So if I just hold my cursor here, you can see March, and that was pretty much when we opened up the new year of 2022, that bear market that initiated. And this is something also just to consider is the fact that this pattern was still applicable here, even in this case, when we were kind of moving deeper into a confirmed bear market, which we have not made any confirmations of just yet, because in our local market, we can see we have a hell of an uptrend structure that we've been just continuously planting higher lows and higher highs and continuing stair stepping up and up and up, have hit 100K, have since reached some resistance, and of course we'll track that more, but for now just wanted to focus on this particular pattern. But I believe you can see that when we have March 10th through 15th as more of a local top, we tend to correct from there. But when we have March 10th through 13th as more of a local bottom, we actually pivot and push up higher after that. Now we have March 13th of 2021, which also marked a local top. We could actually see Bitcoin topped exactly on that date, had a little bit of a correction to the following full moon, a slightly higher high, but pretty much just a bull trap at that point. Not much higher. Buy pressure was exhausted, and we could confirm that by the following move into May, which was a lower high, even lower than what we were trading at in March. And then we had this cascade to the downside, which aligns with our current lunar cycle that we just moved into. So we'll get back to this late May 2021 thing in a moment. But then, of course, we have 2020, one of the most famous crashes in Bitcoin and pretty much the history of the markets. 2020, March 13th. So that was our bottom for Bitcoin, and this also was a V-shaped recovery, with most of April looking pretty awesome. Now, something that's crazy that I just noticed about March 13th, so we're talking about March 13th here in 2020, well, March 2019, look at this. I'm going to go to the state. Here we are. See that one little red day? Well, if you look at where Bitcoin was trading on a March 13, 2019, it was not only the lowest daily close for the rest of the cycle, but it was also at the exact price Bitcoin crashed to a year later. I'm going to show you where the cursor is on March 13th. It's really, really hard when you are looking at a daily chart, but this is going to be the most accurate we can do. So it's that red day right here. And if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see it says the close was 3,850. We had a low of 3,826 and we had a high of 3,869. Well, if we look at where we traded to on March 13th, 2020, we made it down to those exact levels, not on Gemini exchange, but many of the exchanges. And if you look at like the index, Bitcoin index chart, which kind of aggregates all of the data of all the exchanges, including some of the leverage exchanges, we pretty much back tested the same exact price we traded at on March 13th, 2019. So pretty mind-blowing, and funny that I just realized this recently. So yeah, kind of cool, the fact that we made such a move. Also, we have 2017. Gonna get to that now. We've been talking about this March for a while because, well, we are getting kind of the energy that we got back in March of 2017. And you can see that March 10th was sort of a local bottom, and then we pushed up bullish into March 15th, and then from March 16th we slid all the way until March 25th. Now, interestingly enough, if we take from the daily close to this low, it was 30%. It was around a 33% full correction, but we had about a 30% correction, and what we also just experienced here into March 2025 was a 30% correction into the month of March from our local top earlier this year. And we could also see that April was pretty much bullish, continuing up into the month of May, a little bit of a topping structure in June, and we started to see a little bit of a slowdown followed by a pretty deep correction into July. But this whole move right here is really fascinating because it seems to have some alignment with some of the things we've recently experienced, like the very big peak that we got in the month of January tied to the inauguration of Donald Trump, correction, and then only big difference is the structural difference. Obviously, over here, we weren't exactly in the same moment that we are. Sorry, this chart's a little bit cut off. I would have to go to this chart just to show you the full picture. No need for these moons to be on, apologies. When I zoom out, you can see that pretty much in March, we were breaking out for the first time into all-time highs, whilst recently we were already up there. But now, lately, we've actually been coming back into getting closer and closer and closer to the highs that we made over here in about a year ago on this exact time frame. So we're just kind of returning back to those similar levels. That's kind of what I meant about that similarity. Just structurally, there's some purpose for us to come back and fill out this whole area because we just blasted right through it with no trading in between. Everything from like 70 to 80 was completed in just a couple daily candles, and that's not good. That was one problem that we had. And the fact that it was all triggered by an exoteric event of the elections, it's another problem too. But remember, we had that CME gap and we've recently completely filled it. And not really a point for us to talk too much about that today because I already gave you an update recently. So we have this pattern, right, of March 10th through March 13th. Let's look at where we're at today, and we can see that our lowest price so far on a daily close was March 10th, just like it was last year. Just like it was in 2022. We had this correction into March 10th, March 11th. We did actually push a little bit lower. Technically, that was the CME gap fill, and that's where we started to get a little bit of a bullish divergence forming, which is not 100% confirmed yet. But basically what we have here is we have a really deep push into oversold on the RSI with a price of 84K. And then we have a daily close that is lower, but RSI read of around 31 or so. You're getting some divergence there, which is good to see. Obviously, we would all like a recovery and we would all like it soon, but the market's doing what it's doing right now. It's a very volatile time. It's eclipse season, and we're going to try to do our best during today's podcast to fill in all the blanks so you can have something to be prepared for with the probabilities. Now, March 10th, we got our absolute low price on the daily close. March 13th was also a little bit of a pivot low so far. And today, Sunday, March 16th is still in the works. And we have to admit, Sundays have been horrible for us here in crypto land. So clearly the algorithm is short heavy on Sundays, and it's doing this for a reason because that's the crypto market's weekly close. And when the institutional investors return within the hour of market close for CME futures to open. So as always, expect the final hours of Sunday's close to be volatile because that's how it's been for pretty much a year straight now since the Bitcoin ETFs launched. Now that we've addressed this pattern and are pretty much in the process of fully completing it, we do need to address the fact that March is still an incredibly volatile month, and we're also still in eclipse season with a partial solar eclipse coming up at the end of this month on March 29th, and we also have Mercury stationed retrograde right now. So we're now in Mercury retrograde from March 15th until April 7th. We'll also talk more about Mercury retrograde's influence on the Bitcoin chart in a moment. But really quickly, I want to go over to the Bitcoin monthly chart and show you something that I found in this particular chart. And it has to do with the transition from the month of March into April, which is where we are now. And how in 2016, if we look back at that chart, I'm going to get to it over here. We had a red March followed by April closing green. Then the following year of 2017, we had a red March followed by April closing green. Then we had the following year of 2018, we had a red March and a April closing green. Same thing as the year before. And also we have this very famous moment of a red March close and April closing green in 2020. So just a couple iterations when we're in the process of uptrend where we're seeing this relationship between March, April, and a couple of these times were during a very similar structural kind of vibe. But the only thing that'd be quite different was the C19 crash. But honestly, with today's numbers that we're getting with Bitcoin having such a high market cap, what we've seen recently has been historic. And look at the stock market. I think the stock market wiped out like $5.5 trillion over the past, what was it, couple weeks. I'm not sure if that's measured from the exact high, but it wouldn't shock me if it's even more than that, and that 5.5 trill was just in this past couple weeks. It wouldn't shock me. And that doesn't matter. The point of what I'm saying though is the velocity of the way that we're crashing in the stock market looks very similar actually to the C19 crash, and I believe we'll also get to that in a moment too. Just wanted to bring this up. An interesting fact: the only time in history where Bitcoin had a red March and also a red April, meaning back-to-back red months for March and April, was during 2014's bear market. It was March, April at the start of the bear market, and then it also technically happened again at the bottom of that bear market in 2015 between March and April. You can see right there, but I couldn't find that data point anywhere else in the entire chart history of Bitcoin. And another thing that's interesting is if you look through the Bitcoin chart and you try to find a red February, they're so rare. And I bring this up because we just had one, and this was a data point I knew about for some time now, which is why I initially leaned bullish in my probabilities for this recent February in 2025, and that was obviously a miscalculation, which we spoke about a couple Red Pill podcasts ago. But just so you're aware, this was our first red February close since the C19 crash. We had February close red in 2020, and then we had our crashing structure completed within the month of March. Obviously, it was a black swan event, and we, as you are well aware now, we corrected into the dates of March 10th through 15th. So far it's mimicking that energy here today, and that was the worst of it. So not trying to give you hopium, but just saying that there are a lot of similarities to the velocity of how we're crashing. The narrative behind it is like back then in March, it was all like, the V, the wear the mask stuff, the C19, you guys know that? Yeah, okay. Well, now it's all Trump with the tariffs, right? So they're just a big narrative, and they're riding the wave, and the market's panicking, and it's selling, and it feels like we're actually kind of back into that vibe where while you're living through it, you can see and sense the panic. And a lot of people in their real lives are feeling this pain too with the pricing, and people who live in certain countries are worried, like what's going to happen next, like with Canada. So anyways, I'm not going to go that route in today's podcast. I want to stay on track. I'm just saying that if we were to look at the traditional markets, the way we're seeing the NASDAQ fall lately is pretty much at the same velocity of the C19 crash. It's crazy how quickly the indices entered oversold territory on the daily RSI recently. Just keep that in mind. And when it comes to red Februaries, the last one we had before the 2020 iteration was, guess what? 2014. So the fact that I brought this up twice now is making me want to look deeper into 2014 price action leading into Q2 that year. But at a quick glance, you can see that there actually was a little bit of a relief rally right there into the month of June 2014 before the bear market continued and the prices dropped further. But note, this was a much longer lunar cycle than the one we're about to move into. The one we're moving into, good news is it's the shortest lunar cycle we've pretty much had. It's equally as short as the one we had back here, which you can see. The way that we crashed into the bottom was 1 year from top, and then we had this J-curve recovery into the first total solar eclipse. Now, that's very weird for us this time around because we have a total solar eclipse in 2026 in February. Like, very weird, because this offsets everything that we've been doing here a little bit, and that's maybe why we didn't get alt season at this time. So there's a lot going on, and it's making me a lot more like excited actually, because we're having certain things happen, but then we're also seeing that this particular set of lunar eclipses, it's only giving us 2 before we actually have a annular solar eclipse, and we do technically have one in March 1 year from now. But that August total solar eclipse would be like the latest of when we would confirm that we've re-entered the solar cycle. I mean, there's no other way to dice it. So, are we going to have the fastest bear market that we've ever had? It could very well be the case. And is 2026 still the time frame to anticipate the absolute low of the bear market? Yes, it still seems to be the case. Does it feel like we're absolutely over and that we've completely topped? Well, that's very strange because we have a couple things that are going on in the markets that don't necessarily point to the end, and that's M2 money supply and the business cycle and many, many other things that you guys could probably learn from a lot of other savvy analysts that don't focus on the esoteric stuff. But I'm here focusing on the esoteric stuff. And yes, we moved into a lunar cycle. Yes, we got our deep correction into it, but it has so much narrative around it that that's what's making me feel that this isn't a fake out. But we can't write off the probability of a black swan event coming into potential relief rallies ahead, and that's where things can get a little confusing. So if we get a relief rally, that's where you have to be cautious, and that's where you have to take into consideration de-risking if you haven't already. I mean, I was preaching de-risking all throughout December, January, February, regardless of what I thought could possibly happen. Could go look through the posts, everyone could see for themselves. So whether Bitcoin was 90 or 100 or 105, whatever was going on with Bitcoin or XRP, I was adamant about you should de-risk if you need to. Everything is on a personal basis. Nobody can sell the perfect top. Nobody can buy the perfect bottom. Everyone who says they do, well, that's great. But I believe we would have a much more different world if there was some magical, like, look, this is the perfect system. We would all just buy it and we would all be billionaires, right? And that's clearly not the case. So we got hit with a very heavy narrative-driven set of events recently, and that narrative is spooking out the markets. And we know that markets can recover very quickly, especially when it's tied to only narratives. And that seems to be what we've been dealing with here in crypto. So to keep it on the rails, if there's any astrologers here in our community, let us know your findings for the year 2014. It'll be interesting to see what you come across. Now, before we get into the Mercury retrograde analysis, I'll quickly address something that a lot of people have wanted me to look into, and that's become really trendy. It's become really trendy, and it's overlaying the M2 Global Liquidity Index on the Bitcoin chart and pushing it out about 10 weeks. So here we are, we're looking at this specific indicator right here. You can see it says M2 Global Liquidity Index, and I have the offset in days set to 70, which is 10 weeks. So here we are. I've heard some feedback from some people saying to adjust for 105 days offset. I'll review that as well too. But for those who aren't aware of what M2 is, Global M2 Money Supply refers to the total liquidity. Basically, it's the total liquid money supply, including cash, checking deposits, and easily convertible near money assets, as they say. It's essentially the total money supply in the world. And when we look at this Bitcoin chart with the M2 Global Liquidity Index indicator offset by 70 days on the daily chart, which is 10 weeks, you'll see that it's fairly accurate. And this sort of aligns with my personal thesis when we zoom in, that we could actually move up into around the beginning of this upcoming week. Let's just say March 18th, maybe March 20th, reach a little bit of a sell wall, and then we could actually have another short-lived correction into March 23rd, which you'll see why in a moment when I get into the Mercury retrograde analysis. And then starting our following Monday, which is March 24th, we could then continue to push up. But the solar eclipse energy and the eclipse season overall can trap things sideways for now, especially with Mercury retrograde. So keep that in mind. So this is also what happened at the start of our last lunar cycle in late May of 2021. Perhaps you remember. And what I mean by this is we crashed into that first total lunar eclipse, and then we were sideways for like about a month and a half to 2 months. And basically what this M2 indicator is showing us is that we'd be pivoting from this recent downtrend that's been in place since effectively December into now late March. And this will start reversing bullish into April and continue up into May, as you can see. Now, when I shift the offset time by 105 days, you're going to see a slightly different story. This showing April as sideways after some more blood in the streets in March, leading into very early April. Now, that is something to consider. And the reason I say this is because we have eclipse season right now. It's the start of a lunar cycle. And I'm going to be showing you in a little bit something I've already shown you, which had to do with the year 2001. But this end of March timeframe, it could get weird. And it's just the month of March in general. It's a reset month, just like it was back in 2020, just like it was at the top of the dot-com bubble in 2000, just like it was again in the year 2001 following that. So this month of March is very, very interesting. And when I did the year of the snake analysis, perhaps some of you remember this March 10th to March 13th pivot we would get, March 15th to 16th in some cases, but it's just that mid-March timeframe. We would be topping out there momentarily and then hanging out sideways. And then in a couple of the other iterations, it was just an absolute low, or it was a very bloody time frame. And that's kind of what we're faced with today. So whoever is using this as an indicator, I can already imagine everyone's going to fight over what's the correct offset time to use. And now it's just a mess of speculation. But I don't want to be part of that battle because that's not my vibe. I'm just sharing some of my thoughts right now on how this could potentially align in some ways with my personal investment thesis, which is that it's a bottoming structure in the month of March. So if we go over to the weekly chart and we return this back to 10, which would be 70 days, and I zoom in, could kind of, and by the way, guys, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm not saying I found this. This is people in my community reaching out to me saying, Waters, please look at this. And I'm saying, sure. Here we go. Everyone's interested, so here we are. I'm not taking credit for anything. As far as I'm aware, it's everybody and their mother is talking about this fucking indicator. So here you have it. Like some stuff like this is kind of boring to me sometimes because I'm like, you can get this from other people. But anyways, let's do it. I feel like Lemon Grab, you guys go look him up if you don't know who he is. But this is definitely showing us a little bit of a move down into late March and then pretty much pushing up hard into mid-April. That's actually kind of what I think too. And then again, kind of having this little stall out over there into May, the mid-May, and then just rocket up through the end of May, which is kind of interesting. Again, as you offset this further into the future, it's just going to push this out more and more. So it's tough to understand, but really it feels like what most people agree with, whether they're looking at the 7-day offset or they're looking at the 105-day offset, is that we're in the process of bottoming very soon. And the lows could actually be in specifically for the crypto market, but we're going to cover some more things in a moment. Just wanted to say a couple of these things with regards to zooming in with M2 overlaid on the Bitcoin chart. It's not actually far off from what I'm personally anticipating. So there could be something to this. And I've heard a couple people say that it's really only been effective since the Bitcoin ETFs have launched because of institutional involvement and the scale of the institutional involvement. And this could also make sense because of how high Bitcoin's market cap is. So it takes quite a lot to push Bitcoin up. And this is why we have to be cautious of like these over exaggerated Bitcoin targets, Anyways. Let's head over to our Mercury retrograde analysis. What some of you guys appreciate is the esoteric analysis, and we're going to be going over the daily chart, reducing the noise, starting with a reminder of how the first 5 to 7 days tend to go into Mercury retrograde, which is essentially a false rally, and sometimes it's even a pump and dump. So let me show you. We're going to go through a bunch of examples. So here we are at the start of the last Mercury retrograde. We have about day 5. You can see that we're stalling out, and then we curve over kind of come back to where we were effectively when we started Mercury retrograde, and then we did actually push up with an incredibly volatile day right here on December 5th. But you see this momentum up into about day 4 to 5, and I'm just going to call it 5 to 7 because you're going to see a couple more patterns. So then we have over here, nasty move down in the second day of Mercury retrograde. But look at that, about 4 to 5 days, you're also kind of coming back up into the middle of the overall pattern and kind of getting lazy and rolling over. And that was exactly how the last iteration went too. You see this? We kind of had this momentary distribution. We're looking very, very short time frames, by the way, like a 4-hour chart when we would call this something like a distribution. It's just showing you that we're having like a crown top. Over here it was the same, and then we actually did grind to the upside, push higher into the end of Mercury retrograde, which is what happened over here too. We also came back down after it too, so just keep that in mind. But here we have continuation of the pattern. We're on day 7, pump up, it's a pump and dump into day 8, and then back down over here. Let's see what's going on. We have day 7, we're also back up, getting a little toppy over there. So you can see there's definitely this relationship with like 1 week deep into Mercury retrograde here. You just have a straight up pump and dump. You made it to day 6, big green candle on day 6, keeled over. Let's keep going. Okay, we have again, would you look at that, day 6, topping out. Let's keep going. Oh, one anomaly, so keep this in mind. This was the bear market bottom, essentially, near our bear market bottom. So here we have day 5, a pump and dump, because day 6 we came right back down, erasing all the gains over here. Let's see what's going on. We made it to day 5, sideways. Over here, one of our kind of effectively an anomalies, we continue down lower through this time frame. So here, a pattern that is much similar to this one over there, just a rally throughout. Here also a rally throughout. Here also a rally throughout. But here is the closest to what we have going on right now, which is the start of a lunar cycle. We have Mercury retrograde in the middle of a lunar eclipse, followed by a solar eclipse, just like we have now. And you can see day 5, we're up and coming back down. So I'm not going to waste any more time with this. You can clearly see a pattern, and we do have a couple anomalies, but more so that rally throughout kind of energy, which we haven't seen during the start of a lunar cycle. So would I like that to happen? Fuck yes, I would. Would it be what I want it to be? No, but this is something we can entertain in these last couple patterns. The energy of how we've corrected into Mercury retrograde, then we rise up into day 5 through 7, stall out a little bit, and then as we get into the final days of Mercury about to station direct again, we could have a pump into the end of Mercury retrograde. Let's kind of just take a couple of these numbers and apply them to our charts. So we have Mercury retrograde as of March 15th. We're going to be measuring over about 5 days. This brings us to March 20th through March 22nd, meaning we can rally this week into the weekly close for the traditional markets, which is just what I said earlier. It's also kind of what that M2 indicator is showing us. And then once we get to the weekend, next weekend, we would stall out a little bit. And of course, we need to consider the 2001 S&P fractal, which bottomed on March 22nd. Then we had a W bottom into April 4th, which is similar to what M2 indicator showed us if we set it to a 105-day offset. So in the event we mimic the exact same move for the stock market, we can actually push down further. But I'm talking about the stock market because crypto crashes so fast and so violently that with crypto, we can actually see a bottom sooner. Now, you might be confused at what I'm saying, so don't worry. Remember I showed you before, we have March 13th crash for Bitcoin, and then we were already up by the date of March 23rd. Look at that. Now let me show you the S&P chart of 2020. I'm going to zoom in to this crash. March 13th is here. Look at where the S&P went into the 23rd. We pushed lower. So the crypto market bottomed on March 13th, but if you look at the S&P chart, we actually pivoted on the 23rd. And the Russell 2000 also retested the lows on the 23rd before a bounce as well. So we're talking pretty much all the major indices dropped lower for those additional 10 days. But by March 23rd, 2020, Bitcoin was up already 50% from the lows that it planted on March 13th. So you can see how Bitcoin recovered in those 10 days while the traditional markets were just in the process of finalizing their bottoming structure, continuing to fall down further. So is that the case for us this time around? Well, the C19 crash was a very similar structure compared to the 2001 structure, and that's seemingly what's happening now. We also have, which is kind of interesting, and the opposite of the 2020 event, C19, we have gold pumping into price discovery, and it's been hitting new all-time highs lately. So we're seeing risk off in the traditional markets and these risk assets, and we're seeing gold still kind of, well, gold is the best performer right now, I guess, technically, when we're just looking at chart, like when we're looking at what is up comparatively versus, the overall structure of what we've been seeing for the past 2 to 3 quarters. Right? We're just seeing gold do very, very nicely against Bitcoin, especially since December and obviously the traditional markets. Well, we now have a lot to consider, right? But we've been hyper focused on what this time frame right now would be like moving into the end of March. I hope you're seeing that I'm doing everything in my power to kind of piece it all together. And I think this is an absolute gem. The fact that we came down lower into March 23rd, in the traditional markets during the C19 crash, even though the Bitcoin chart and most of the altcoins were bottomed by March 13th in 2020. Keep this all in mind. What is the S&P's? Let me see. Yeah, we made it to 28, I think, 27 on the RSI in the daily. It's pretty wild. It's a very, very significant drop. It's pretty much even more violent than the drop we got back in August. The percentage move, and then look at the rebound that we had off of this. I'm not saying this is going to be the case, but effectively retesting 18 days later. That would be like if by April 2nd we were already back at if we were already back at like 6,000 on the S&P. That'd be the recovery speed. Of course, we're kind of in the environment where all it would take is one moment, one little thing to change the energy here, and perhaps that could be the FOMC meeting, but you're all aware that that event's coming. The Fed knows that you all know that is coming. So they're going to do what they do best. And hence why I'm personally making that decision I'm making with my personal portfolio, because in the event that these venture capital positions just turn out to be absolute shitcoins and ETH continues to drain more and more and more, then I'm going to be happy with myself that I took that loss purposefully and then reallocated my portfolio for a potential relief rally, which is typically in the cards after a drop that's this hard. I mean, it's just always how it goes. It never just keeps going more and more and more. There is some relief. Anyways, before we get into the traditional analysis on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, I just wanted to show you a quick gem that I found in the Russell 2000 since I mentioned it a moment ago. And that is, so we're here at the RUT, Small Cap 2000 Index. We're just looking at the RSI right now, and we're going to be on the 3-day chart. And we're looking at recent price action over the past 5 years. We're going to compare times where our RSI was similar, and just want to show you this. We have our last time the RSI was as low, and it was the pivot of October 30th, again on the 3-day chart, and to the following peak, it was 57 days. Don't worry about the percentage, but just look at the timing, 57 days. Well, this also happened in June 16th of 2022. So right here, at this low, June 2022, on the 16th of June, and we go over to the following peak, which was on August 12th, and we have 57 days. Again, kind of just keeping this lower RSI read in mind. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it just kind of gives you an idea of what happens when the Russell makes it down to some of these levels. And you can see the volatility, right? The chop. Also, January 20 8th to the following peak. Let me zoom in more to be a little bit more accurate. So we have from the 28th to the 25th of March, we have 56 days. So we see 3 clear examples over the past 5 years. We get a little bit of relief rally. That would be that structure right there that we're reliving. And the reason why it's kind of scary is because it's a double top. Like it is. It's a double top with the same sort of structure here to here and the cascade down to pretty much the same range. And the idea here is, well, if we've made it there, we have to take about 56 to 64 days or so off of that pivot low, and let's see where that puts us. So if we were to entertain that our current lows are the bottom on the Russell, then this would bring us to around May 8th. If we were to go to the last kind of week or so of March, and you go over 56 days, that puts you into May 21st. Again, landing in the month of May, which is what happened in the year 2001, snake year example. And several year of the snake examples I've shown you in recent Red Pill podcasts regarding May. So we definitely need to keep early to mid-May in mind this year. Keep it on your radar. And based on what Bitcoin dominance has been doing lately, I'm actually still keeping August in mind for our next major peak in the crypto market. But of course, we'll take this 1 month at a time. And I think this upcoming week is very telling of how things are going to play out. It'll be fascinating with this FOMC meeting to see what they do in reaction to this market slide. And who knows, we could literally get QE early. Like we could get something happening in April, and that'd be the exact catalyst for that type of April move to the upside, which, a reminder, I know I say this often, but it's one of our best months for Bitcoin. So if they sink us low into March, it makes getting a 30% move in the month of April a lot easier if you were to, for instance, open up the month of April low. If you were to open up the month, let me get to the Bitcoin chart so I can just show you what I'm talking about. If we were to open up the month of April where we are now, for instance, which, of course, not 100% saying that would be the case, but even if we were to open it up a little bit higher, 85. Oh, I don't think this could happen in April. That would be insane. If they hit us with a new all-time high in the month of April, hats off to the market maker. They are the best because they just shook out everyone except the wolfpack. Anyways, with this move of 30%, that's pretty dramatic. If we were to go off the lows, let me adjust this a little bit. If we were to go off the lows right now, if we were to, for instance, come down into that time frame of around 77, a 30% move would be putting us right at about 102. So in the month of April, could we get back to 100K Bitcoin? Sure. Why not? We fell that quickly. Why can't we rise that quickly? We've seen it happen before. Look at what Bitcoin did on every major drop last year. Every time we had our first major drop, right back to the top. We had our second major drop, right back to the top. We had our third major drop, still back to the same area. Look at this, the speed of this drop, and we were still coming back within the range. Over and over again, we were just chopping. So that could very well be the market that we're faced with at the moment. And let's get a little bit deeper into this. I would like to go to our weekly chart because we have a weekly close coming in. This is not accurate. What the hell is going on with Bitcoin's index chart? This is accurate. Okay, so obviously a very tough call because of what happened last Sunday when I finished recording. This fucking market dropped again on a Sunday, dude. So it's just always on a Sunday. It's crazy. It did not used to be like this, where like we would get close to the Sunday close and just start cascading lower and lower. But anywho, it is what it is. No crying in the casino, but it is kind of lame how we just held structure the whole time and then out of nowhere, just this pressure, sell pressure coming in. And it tells me that the algos are definitely planning all that. Anywho, getting back to the market that we're faced with today, let's look at some of our major EMAs, and we have the 34. And what happened after the last time we closed slightly below the 34? Well, we had 2 major green weeks. Obviously, this doesn't look so pretty right now, but that was the last time we initially went into it. It's actually quite a similar structure too. just from the sort of double toppy vibe M pattern, bring us down to the 34 weekly EMA. And then we have a bounce back above. We're just getting back above now, but who the hell knows with the way this market's been lately? The moment I finish this red pill, they could push it down again right back to the lows. So it's very, very tough right now because institutions are doing whatever they can to clearly take everyone's money from this market. So the relief bounce that we had though was pretty much right back into the same territory, which hard to determine on the timing of this, but pretty much would be right about the range of 100 if we were to compare. Also, that was the last time our RSI on the daily was about the same lows, if I remember correctly. Yeah, you see this right there. That was also a bullish divergence that we had on the daily chart in the same posture. We did kick lower. We did kick lower here, and then we had a rally off of these lows, pretty much 25%. So 25% would bring us to about 96. Obviously, it doesn't need to be perfect, but only coming up into 96 that's kind of looking at things from the more conservative side. And if that was to happen, I think XRP might make it close to 3. XRP might make it to 280 to 290 if we were to see Bitcoin get back to 96. So keep that in mind for anyone with the de-risking side of things, because things could keel over fast again and we could just be trapped in a range, like a long range like we did all the way over here. I know like no one wants to hear stuff like this, but that is what it is. As long as Bitcoin dominance holds up the way it's been holding up, that's what we're faced with, you know? So let's get back to this chart. We have the Wyckoff chart. Now, if you remember in our last time reviewing this chart, I've since adjusted the spring phase. It's been moved over. And the reason it had to be was because of this Trump post, this nonsense that came in, all that volatility, and the fact that we got rejected on the outside of the resistance line for the creek. It really tells me that this is actually a much more accurate spring. And look at the structure that we have right now. The way that we're coming back up is not fake. This was all fake, again, happening on a fucking Sunday. So what we're seeing right now is we're actually grabbing this liquidity. We're filling out this zone over here, which was everything from the high 70s up to around the potential 87 area. We did not have that filled out before, and it's really nice to see because it was eventually going to be back tested anyways. It was either going to be sliced through in the depth of the bear market or it was going to come sooner. Hence why I had analysis around the time we were just breaking out to tell people like, hey, this is a pretty massive CME gap and these typically do get filled and they're gonna get filled eventually, or you're gonna be, you know, in a situation where just expect it with the bear market, right? So we got it. And the fact that it came in perfectly into our lunar eclipse, I think says something for our lunar eclipse and solar eclipse, or solar cycle, lunar cycle theory that we have, which so far is playing out. So I adjusted this spring phase since that's the way it works whilst we're in the process of holding our macro uptrend. As we progress through the phases, we need to account for overall structure. And since we're looking at a cryptocurrency, that volatility can be incredibly dramatic, as you're all well aware, especially during a spring phase, right? So as technical analysts, we're essentially in the process of identifying if we've bottomed or not, which would require confirmation to disclose probabilities. And so far, we don't have any concrete confirmations just yet because we would like to then break structure on the upside, which would be back above, I think it's fair to say 91, because I don't even look at this anymore, this pump and dump that happened with the Trump post on Truth Social. You know, it's not his fault, man. He has handlers, he has people running his accounts. People think that he's running his shit. He ain't. You know, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's the New World Order. Wake up. So here we are. We have this kind of getting in the way, but it was a very technical level. And funny enough, on that Red Pill podcast that came in before that post happened, I shared 94K was the zone to watch out for. You could go back and watch it. I forgot what red pill it was. I guess it was 2 weeks ago. And I said in that to look out for 94. It's a very, very important level. And now we have this dotted line across the screen. This is kind of like where our PSY is in. You could see this AR pivot and also where we broke down. So we came back up to it, and then that rejection there is not a nice thing to see. But the fact that it was so technical, it tells me that whether Trump was gonna make us go there in that particular moment, or if we would eventually go there a month from that day or 3 weeks from that day, that it was all a sell wall that was telling us that the TA was accurate, right? So it's all about understanding the levels and where they are. And for the people out there that are trading this market, if you want to set your stop losses, set your take profits accordingly, set your limit orders accordingly. But it was actually technical, the fact that we went up there. But the velocity and the speed and the reason why we went up there is why it turned out to be a pump and dump. And since we've went lower, and now the way that we're grinding to the upside, it's looking more like a spring to me. It's feeling more like a spring to me. And then we're also getting the first signs of a bullish divergence, which we brought up a little bit ago. So are we in fact in the test phase? Well, I won't call it test until we've gotten back to 89. So we still have a little ways to go. And I think this week that we're ahead with the 5 days into Mercury retrograde could very well be the time. I mean, it would be nothing for Bitcoin to be able to move up to 89K this week to get even there before the FOMC meeting. That would be nothing for Bitcoin. It would just take 2 days, couple 3% days. Even during the FOMC meeting, we can see that be the volatility. So just keep it in mind. We're not out of the weeds just yet. This is going to be a very weird week because we had such a major market drawdown. And then we have the Fed speaking on Wednesday. So they're going to address all the stuff that's going on with Trump. And yeah, it just is what it is. So we have some of the technical levels. We have some of the timing too to consider. So if I had to make it nice and simple for you guys, Mercury retrograde, first 5 to 7 days, that puts us around March, let's call it 18th through 22nd is the time frame to see a push up into our current resistance, which is around 89 to 90K. Would it be great if we could push through it? Hell yes, because if we could push through it and we could break above these levels, then that would be called the spring is in its process of full completion. You don't have to have it be one of these events, and it could even turn into an inverse head and shoulders. Again, I'm not a patterns guy, but it could be like this. So you have look, that shit would have happened regardless. If you just remove it, it would have happened regardless because we were going up into March 6th. So you have your left shoulder, head, right shoulder into your test right here. And your test, or it could be something where it's falling like that. So you have your falling head and shoulders pattern where it doesn't come up as much, but still when it back tests over here, let's just say around March 24th, March 25th, you hold that and then getting back above the 90K then, into the end of March. That would be it's probably how it will go. Actually, if we wanted to really time this market, move up into March 20th, maybe only make it to 89, come back down, and then we have this more diagonal vibe, inverse head and shoulders. You see? Looks kind of awkward when I draw it, but that could definitely be the play, unless we get a glorious announcement from, Fed being like, or the government being like, I'm buying Bitcoin, yay. Okay, cool. Let's move on to ETH. We're going to be very brief on ETH because it looks like absolute trash. But yeah, so we've dropped a lot on Ethereum, and really all we have to look at to confirm what's happening is just ETH dominance is draining. So there is nobody left. Look at the fall. The speed of this fall is wild. Talk about a Bart head. Yeah, at least this had a nice run up, but the way it's falling is crashing structure. So ETH is dunzo. How low can it go? Well, let's look back at where it was on July 29th or August 2019 in the price. Just want to see. That's about August 2019 in the price. And you see we actually, oh God. Yeah, dude. You know what? It's not worth it. It's just not even worth the TA right now, because if we look at the major trend line that was broken, we will have to flip this to a horizontal trend, and we only have the 382. When you fall back below the 382 after this three times rejected exactly at the 888, it kind of just feels like a bear market. I know, like, it sucks to say, but like that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So is there no is XRP getting all the I know I could look at the XRP base in each chart, but like, just I want to keep things simple for today. Like, is that the case? Did XRP win against ETH? It's great. I've always held more XRP, so whatever, dude. But now, guys, I have this fractal. You're welcome to disagree with this fractal. It's not me trying to say I'm right. It's just I took the fractal over here from the drawdown. I mean, perhaps some of you will agree with it, but like, it's from the blow off top style vibe we had around May into the crash that we had at the start of the lunar cycle. And the way that I've postured it is actually that it came in a little bit earlier. And when you look at the top, I didn't adjust the height, I kept it the same. I just adjusted where it's located, right? And you see this major correction right there. Well, that's kind of like what I aligned here. And then it feels like we're at the bottom of the first W, the first V in a W. So if we went up into like March 24th, came back down to April 5th, remember, nobody's buying ETH right now. Like, it's just dominance is falling. So this structure could be in the play. But then when I took it out away from this, it does seem that it's respecting this major. Actually, I don't know if I messed up with the way that I moved this too much. Cool, yeah. It does look like it's still respecting this turquoise blue trend line. You see the chop on the top, the head above, drop below in June. And then we have like kind of an alt season into July. July, kind of August. But it'll also feel like a mini alt season from April to May. And when I'm looking at ETH dominance this low, it's like, how low can it go, dude? How much fucking lower? It's 8.5%. You know, I'm not worried. I don't care. It's just, wow. Wow. Yeah. Oh my God, dude. Look at the weekly RSI in this. It's 24. So maybe that's the play. You know, like, we have like a mini alt season. Guys, don't take this out of context. I hope you see what I just did there. It's not a magic trick. I'm not trying to push the goalpost or none of that shit. It's just we have to look at today's market conditions. That's what we do as technical analysts. And all I'm showing you is the fact that we have ETH dominance like falling off a cliff. The speed of which it's falling is very weird. And we also have price breaking through this macro support line that's been in play for like 1,000 days, you know. And then we finally started to, like, now no one cares about ETH anymore. And that's literally what this shit was doing back here in September, October of 2020. Like, I remember it vividly. Nobody really cared, you know, because Chainlink was killing it. Like, a lot of other things were doing very, very well. And yeah, then ETH went on a straight line breakout and everyone was like, what the hell is going on? But we didn't really make much more of a significant new all-time high. So it was like the 2016 cycle was the one where, I guess, yeah, that was the crazy one. Not to say this wasn't, you know, but you would have had to buy the absolute bottom and been really dialed in on that, which I do know people who bought this June. But I forgot where I bought my ETH recently. I forgot. Was it 1,000? 1,100? I mean, I might have got close. It doesn't really matter though. Point though is that this mini alt season idea I don't think is weird because of the way Bitcoin dominance is looking. So what we might see is, like, when M2 kicks in from April into May, we could have like a real noticeable injection into the market. Let's get to XRP. Nice. Little bit of a flaggy flag. We're gonna disregard this. That's the Trump bullshit. And yeah, we're holding supports on this. It almost feels like a creek though. This is like what I was showing you with Bitcoin. right? So we have PSY, buying climax, automatic rally, UT, up thrust in phase B. Well, it's kind of the same. You got your buying climax, automatic rally, you got your up thrust in phase B, and then you enter this creek. Well, this is the creek, right? I mean, that's what I would be thinking. So do we have, for some reason, XRP drop down into a spring? Well, with the way that ETH dominance is looking and the strength that I'm seeing in the XRP chart, I don't know if that's actually the case. I think XRP is like the best looking chart right now. Effectively, anyone who bought XRP last year, in before November, you're doing very well compared to all the other speculative VC plays that have went down substantially since pretty much even lower than November 5th, the election date. I'm not going to spend too much time on that theory. You could look at your portfolios and everyone knows. So that's kind of like why I'm doing some moves recently. I'm planning to do some moves with my portfolio to just reallocate some nonsense instead of go into fresh cap. I should have said that in the beginning. I don't want to go into fresh capital that I have if there's a strategy that I can implement that works for me. Again, this might not work for a lot of people. If you're somebody who's only personal investments and you have 10 grand of crypto that you want to sell at a loss, well, you're only able to tap into 3K of that. So that would not be smart. You know, you have to do what's right for you and you have to do what makes sense for you. Some people don't get to have any capital gains or capital losses because of the structure for their country and their laws. So I'm not sure what it would be in that case. You know, so again, you have to do what is right for you. But XRP right now is looking pretty damn good. And I think it just has to jump over 260. So I could really summarize the analysis here in a couple of, just quickly by saying I think we need to jump back over 260. That's the level. Most of our horizontal range has been getting rejected there, starting with the move up on December 2nd, December 17th, the breakdown over here, the quick recovery back to 270 on February 3rd, this rejection again at 270 on February 16th. Obviously the pump and dump you could disregard, but then right there we did technically start making like lower highs, and we did make a lower low comparatively to December 30th. You know what I mean? We held $2, but yeah, we do need to get back above the 260 level for this to look healthy. So just keep that in mind, everyone, if you're XRP holder. And then also remember that if Bitcoin's gonna be making this move to the in the month of April up to that like 102, 103K ish territory, then you would likely see a $3 XRP very soon. And it's not just going to be this fake kind of pump and dump move. It'll actually be a sustained uptrend up to $3. And then we'll see what comes after that. Does Bitcoin dominance roll over? Obviously, then you could anticipate XRP to the moon, like the kids say. And if Bitcoin dominance still keeps going up, then, well, you could just expect it to mosey along up with Bitcoin. It's a win-win either way. But if you need to de-risk, you know, that's the major point here. Wow, Monero is not dropping. Ooh. Okay. We're looking at Monero. Wow. Wowie zowie. Great. This shit is so like irrelevant now that it's like it can't even be panic sold. No offense. I'm not like anti-Monero or anti-privacy coins. It's just I don't really believe in privacy on the internet. I would hope we have privacy, but we don't. It's called the World Wide Web. It was created by the elite. That means they could track and trace whatever they want on it. If you don't know this already, then you're looking at the world with rosy glasses. Is that what they say? Yeah. Take them off. Let the sunlight into your eyes. Let it bathe your pineal gland in truth, and it will set you free. Cool little parallel channel we got rising. Definitely parallel channel heavy here. But yeah, I mean, it's not the perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect because it's crypto. So we're always going to have extremes, especially when you account for 100x leverage and all the crazy shit that's going on nowadays. But we're pretty much just holding this uptrend since February. It's confirmed too because we got back above the 382 fib, which was sitting at around $180 resistance, and now we're sitting at 212. So this is looking pretty fucking awesome. I'm surprised. You know, like I'm very honest in these, and this looks good. This looks good. I mean, if we were to look at the August time frame, for instance, if we were to have that kind of additional move up into that time frame, yeah, look, that's fucking wild. So look, we have August 2021. Here's August 2025. I mean, we're within dollars, like $3.30 dollar Monero, 330 Monero. Just think about that for July. Okay? And that could just be in the process of following this parallel channel. And shit, in April, this might be able to break one more time too. So if it just continues this pattern, it's holding very strong. We're on the weekly, by the way. Now, Monero back in the day would have been the craziest thing to have, because look at this shit. That's like 100 fucking 1000% move. Crazy, but none of you, nobody, yeah. You probably sold it all the time too at the wrong time. So yeah, this would have been a crazy time to know about how the markets work, right? Today you do. More people are learning. Too many memes now. Wow, and the fucking C19 crash, this thing went even lower. So imagine you were part of that crash and you were like, holy shit, I couldn't even buy the bottom correctly. But yeah, nice pivot, 1,600%. So like glorious. If you can buy really low on this thing, you're doing well. But now it's lost the volatility. It's probably lost the volume too. So it's like another thing to keep in mind about Monero is that from 2021, it's down 58% right now today. Bitcoin at the same time was 69K. It's up at 84,000 right now, and it was recently just up at 105. So the fucking crazy thing about I'm trying not to curse so much, I'm sorry guys, but it's my birthday, by the way, so cut me some slack. But with Bitcoin, you can like buy the top of Bitcoin and like it like still eventually be profitable. That's crazy to say, right? Like Bitcoin's like one of the few assets where you could buy the fucking top and just chill, you know? You could be a bad investor in Bitcoin. I forgot when I rebought my Bitcoin. I think it was 22K. So it went to, I think it was like 21.5 or 22, something like that. So got pretty damn close to the bottom of the bear market. And then obviously I have Bitcoin that I've accumulated at 9K. So it's at effectively 900% up on my long term, like my stuff in hardware wallet, for instance. You could have bought the top and you'd still be like, if you bought the top of 2020, which this thing never broke out above, like if you bought the top of 2018 for Bitcoin, you would be up from 19,000 to 84,000, and Monero is still down. Double top on the macro. So long term, short term, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't get myself too involved in this stuff right now, personally. I would just go with the XRP, HBAR, Algorand, XDC, Stellar Lumens. Like that stuff is a lot sexier, in my opinion, with regards to the direction of where all this blockchain Aquarian economy, as I like to call it, is headed. Okay, next is Hex. I don't have access to eHex chart anymore. It's been taken off of, for whatever reason, it's been taken off of TradingView. We're looking at Pulse. So Hex on Pulse chain, excuse me. Always get confused with this stuff, but here we are, we're on Dex Screener, we're looking at Hex on Pulse, and let me just do a fresh TA for you all here. Obviously, it's actually very easy to do TA on this right now because it's just a big horizontal trading range. So this is nice. So we have the initial run up, like we don't really consider this too much. We can call this a buying climax, but then we've effectively moved into a distribution over here. If this was to be like a macro analysis, then this is your spring. So buying the very extremes with low volume is kind of smart sometimes, because you see all the volume pick up afterwards, and there was some pivotal moment and this shit went up like almost 800%, right? Got a bit of a head and shoulders if you want to care about those patterns. I don't. But now we're right back at the bottom of this horizontal trading range. Problem is though, is that we have an additional kind of couple levels to keep in mind. And then, of course, we have the SC if we wanted to look at it from a very long term, which I can't because this only started back in 2023. So it's only been a couple of years. But this would be an extreme range that we haven't filled out much. Okay, that's caution. We can go lower. Also, one thing I could do is a fib from here. I will do to here. And I'll show you something. We have that level right there. Perfect, because it goes back. Now that's, by the way, that would be an additional drop of 35%. Why is Hex going down right now? I thought they had this, like, the SEC case is over. Okay, well, clearly it's not doing too, I guess, panic selling from their own people for some weird reason. I think Richard Hart's entertaining. I think all men should go shopping Italian designer clothing and use all of their supporters' money to buy luxurious material items, and that will make you feel better about yourself. I promise you. That sounds like Trump, right? Something Trump would say. I wish I could do a Trump impression, but I'm horrible at impressions. So anyways, yeah, we have this falling pretty rapidly. So I'm not saying this is going to be in the play at this very moment, but it does show you between 0044 and that one level that I was just looking at a moment ago. I don't really care because I will not be buying this thing, but we can easily slide right back. Why? Well, look at what we did here from there to there. It's kind of how it went. So yeah, you could always take a bars pattern if you wanted to and play some fractals. I don't really love being too fractal focused, but it's something like that. I'm just pushing it up to the top, getting pretty close. We do get a little move up now, the end of March, move down into April. Again, like, well, Bitcoin dominance is doing what it's doing and there's no like actual alt season just yet. And then, yeah, you get a little bit of a liquidity injection, and then I don't necessarily know it'll go this deep, but it's something to keep in mind. Another thing we could do to keep in mind is something like this, where we move up and we get the worst of it kind of coming into May. And then I said before that July kind of into August timeframe could be an alt season, and this could rise with that. But I don't think Hex really rides the market the same way like something like XRP would. It has its own little community, its own little thing going on. So in many ways, I don't really think it's gonna mimic what we're seeing across the board, especially now that I don't think there's many people in the Hex community that even hold eHex anymore. Is that even a thing? I don't know. Nobody's told me. So yeah, very tough to do TA on this for the long term because we're very limited in data, and I don't have the EX chart to look at either to kind of like see what it's done in the past. But effectively, we just have this retest of this zone right here, which we had here, we had here, we had here, we keep coming back here for some reason. So this is like a fair price, if I had to say it. Like below a penny is below a penny is a fair price. And their community is keeping it there too. So I'll move on. But I'm not bullish on this chart at all. This is very pumpy dumpy chop. Been in a horizontal trading range now for 2 years effectively, and not much progress, no price discovery. Yeah, plenty of better, I think, opportunities out there. I think like Richard Hart and that kind of thing, it works very well. It worked very well at that time, like the year of the tiger and that kind of stuff, where people like Andrew Tate and Liver King and all of them were like getting all the prana. Like, but we're not there. Like, we're done, dude. We're in the transition years where we're moving into the age of Aquarius, and like, we're not gonna have these personalities anymore. Like, I'm sorry guys, but these Richard Harts and Andrew Tates and even Trumps, like Trump, I think is really the cornerstone of the final personality we get for the Piscean age. He's gonna be the final one. Okay. And he's also, funny enough, he's going to be the one to usher in all of the protocol of the Aquarian economy, such as blockchain technology in your traditional systems to replace your traditional systems. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about that now. Just letting you know. He said, "We will make America the crypto, blockchain, and AI capital of the world." It's his words, not mine. He got Sam Altman up on stage to, you know, he didn't even know the guy. He's like, "Oh, Sam, he's brilliant." He's like, he just met the dude like 10 minutes before he made him part of this fucking team of people. It's all, I love it. My favorite thing is when Trump is signing the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, and he's like basically saying on camera, like, "I don't even know what I'm signing." He's like, "We think this is a good idea? Yeah, okay, sure, let me sign." What the fuck? But one thing I can't say about Trump is he has the most lit signature of all time. Like when I saw him doing his signature, I was like, "Whoa, dude, this is some voodoo." He really, he really puts the E for effort in that sig. Not a whole lot of time trading out of this channel, but the fact that we're now kind of in this process that might look something closer to this, but it's hard to really tell. We have very limited data, and this hit the top of the 1618 into 2021, and we're still down on DAG Constellation, 90% down from the top. Double rejection on the 0.5 fib. So that's a very classic level to get rejected at. That was also the rejection level of the backup phase. So this was your SOS in the last cycle backup phase. And we actually came down to the same fucking level. So that's very good. And what's cool about DAG, I suppose, is that the backup phase was fast. It was only about 6 weeks. So, I mean, if we were to look at it from that perspective, I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but like if we consider that it took, you know, about 42 days or so, this would put us into the middle of April, and we could actually be retesting these highs of 10 cents and pushing through. So not a perfect science here, but that's what it feels like across the board. Like right now we're in a very, very, very exaggerated backup phase. And that's crypto, where we have, like, you didn't realize this, but this was a 74% correction. You wouldn't have known unless you measured it. What was this? 65%? Look at that. 72% fucking correction. And then it just went whoop. By the way, this was after the start of the lunar cycle. You see that? We had the start of our lunar. Bro, that might be happening again. Because the fact that I pulled that out as an example, and look, this was May 24th. This was right around the May 26th total lunar eclipse that started the lunar cycle, and then we recovered off of it and went higher into what month? August. That would be glorious. And we're at almost the same price. Literally are the same price. Keep it in mind, I'm not saying that's how it's 100% going to go, but with the way Bitcoin dominance is looking right now and how it's kind of pushing up more and more and more and more, that's sort of what's making me feel that we're moments away from having that collapse down. Bitcoin dominance is at almost 62% right now. So this DAG chart doesn't look horrible, but yeah, we do need that kind of Hail Mary pass energy to come in soon. And it's tough to tell how it will interact with the 702 fib because it hasn't made it up there yet. And that's an area where we were struggling at the end of the bull run. We were struggling around 18 cents. So that would be a pretty clear sell wall in my opinion. And from where we are right now to that level around 18, 19 cents is 300%. It's not bad. Not bad. Not bad. If you bought the bear market, not bad. 600%. So this thing could turn around fast, you know, very. After this 77% correction, shot up for like 100 days straight. Here recently, what have we had? A 50? Okay, 63. So still kind of chugging along in this similar pattern. I think that might be the case, kind of how this is going. I don't know if it'll have the velocity to make the full move like it did back in 2020. Different environment in a lot of ways. But when the printing press turns back on, which we could very well have at any moment, that's what makes this market do the stuff that it did in 2020 into 2021. Curve. Dow token. Oof. Okay, so we made it back up to the same level that we were trading at in February 2023. Harsh rejection, at least 70 full percent correction back to the 236. Wow, we even broke slightly below that green line that I had on the screen. So the green line was a very important level because it was marking that we didn't have much going on under it, and once we made it under it, that was your really unfortunate part of the bear market. But the timing on this took a long time. It's 1,000 days of just down, 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 down. Now that we made it here, spring up from it. So this would technically be, I think, a macro automatic rally. Now we're coming right back down to similar levels. This is like what happened in like July 2019 for Bitcoin. Just had a major straight, like kind of J curve breakout, and then we came right back down, and then we had the C19 crash. That was a double bottom. So there's always room for double bottoms in these sorts of charts, and the fact that once you get below this green line, you don't have much data. You only have 170 days data. So you better hope that this is bouncing here, and if we could close the weekly off above this level at 43 cents, that's fine. I mean, we effectively have come back to this over and over and over again enough times to the point where, okay, we confirm this is mostly the fair price. Now with any reversals in Bitcoin, we would see us getting at least back to that $1.30. Obviously push higher with Bitcoin dominance rolling over, but with this week ahead, you can definitely see some chop back into 33, 31, 32 cents for this particular project, just because there's thin air between where we're trading at now and those exact levels. There's thin air. So coming back there, very, very easy. And what's the overall play we got ahead? Yeah, I mean, fuck. If this thing could come back even close to the 888 fib, that would be a hell of a play. And that's kind of where I would call it a little toppy at like 350, unless we have a mind-blowing alt season. But like generally with another move up for Bitcoin, somewhere around 320. And that's a technical level too, because that would just be around the top of the golden pocket, 786. And I would call a 600 to 700% play, like what I showed you a moment ago. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice too. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up this podcast here. It was amazing to review some of these charts, to get into things like M2, review this Wyckoff chart, all of this jazz, review the way that the stock market could be pivoting next week off of that FOMC meeting. Also the 5 to 7 days of Mercury retrograde. We want to keep that in mind. And then again, from the moment releasing this till the moment we close for the week, we could definitely have a lot of volatility kicking. But I would love to see XRP hold that $2.40 level. I would love to see Bitcoin plant its lows, hold this 84K level, not push down further into the 70s again. But the week ahead, it's definitely going to be interesting with the upcoming partial solar eclipse, now that we've made it through eclipse into officially eclipse season. So I'll have a new update coming out very soon. Appreciate and grateful for every single one of you. Much love.